politicization and weaponization of the Fed and key economic jobs could make it harder for President Trump to get his nominees confirmed by the Senate. For more on this, we want to bring in Libby Cantrill, who is head of public policy at PIMCO. Libby, it's kind of hard to think of the president getting shut down over an economic appointee, particularly given how much power he's had and how much sway he has had with the Senate-controlled House and Senate lately. But why do you think things are going to be more difficult potentially at this point?
Yeah. Hi, Becky. Nice to be with you. Yeah, I mean, I think that it does seem perfunctory, I think, to market participants, sort of Senate confirmation. This has been a very friendly Senate to Trump. However, if you actually go back to the first Trump administration, President Trump had many nominees for the Fed in particular who never kind of got past go, never got through that first essential step in the Senate Banking Committee for the Fed. For the BLS commissioner, that person will have to go through the Senate Health Committee. That is comprised of several very independent-minded Republicans, including Senator Collins, Senator Murkowski, Senator Rand Paul, all of whom have had no problem voting against any of the president's nominees or of his big legislation in terms of the One Big Beautiful Bill. So I think that the punchline here is the more that the president kind of ridicules, demagogues these positions, the harder it may be for him to bring these folks who are more independent-minded on board, including, again, Senator Collins and Senator Murkowski, as it relates to the BLS commissioner.
And if he tamps down some of the political talk, is it easier at that point? I mean, what's done is done. You've got to have a new person that comes into this job at this point. And there are others, like Elaine Chao, who was telling us this morning that no matter who's in that job, she said basically if no one's in that job, it's still going to be very difficult for anybody to have any undue influence over it because there are hundreds of people who have their hands on it early in the compilation process, and then maybe 40 people even leading up to that final Wednesday before the Friday jobs number release.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, the deputy commissioner is going to be taking over. That person is a career person. He's not a political person. But I think that the kind of the upshot here, Becky, to your point, and to the previous conversation you were having with Steve, is that this is, broadly, I think, indicative of what we had been expecting as well, was a slowdown of the U.S. economy, not a stoppage by any means, but definitely a slowdown. And if you look at some of the headwinds that have been posed to the economy, not only in terms of tariff uncertainty, but in terms of immigration, so less migration into the U.S., there have been, of course, forced retirements, the federal government. All of these things we were expecting to weigh on U.S. economic growth and as a result on payrolls as well. So I think in some ways this is sort of confirming, corroborating exactly what a lot of folks thought, and including us.
Pile the tariffs outlook on top of that. How does that impact the entire situation, the entire outlook?
Well, look, I think that, just if you look at the customs revenue for the U.S. government, the U.S. has been collecting tariff revenue. That means that someone has been paying that tariff, whether it's been the importers on record or the consumers or the exporters. And I think, sort of all of the above at this point. But Becky, I think that sort of to the earlier conversation, we think this will likely get down to consumer prices, maybe not fully, but we do think that consumers will ultimately pay at least some of this tariff, and that will slow consumption. And of course, in a 70% consumer-based economy, that will likely weigh on growth. So again, I think what the jobs report that came out on Friday is largely sort of in sync with this view that, again, the U.S. economy is not stopping. We're not necessarily going into recession, but we are for sure slowing because of all of these headwinds, whether sort of manufactured or whether organic.